and welcome to another 30 minutes of Point of View. This is the show where we're not ashamed to look at political issues from a biblical point of view, even social issues, even the transgender LGBTQ issue, which I don't know, we've had to deal with a lot lately because it's just sort of the thing that everyone wants to send our way. Hey, will you respond to this or will you respond to that? Anyway, we look at it as if the Bible is true. You know, people like to try to act like the Bible isn't true and then try to find a way to weasel around it. It's not us, not here, a point of view. We do that because Jesus died on the cross and rose from the dead. And Jesus proved when he rose from the dead that he's God. And he said that the Bible is true. So then if we're disagreeing with the Bible, we're actually wrong. So it's pretty simple. I'm Josh Barnes, and this is my brother, Justin Barnes. Justin, what are we talking about today?
Well, today we're going to bravely go where no one should ever go ever again, and that is to the world of TikTok, where only the best and brightest have ever decided to put up content, apparently. Today we're going to be discussing a teacher, which I say that word and already I have to pause and say, here's more evidence if you need it to get your kids out of public school. But we're going to be discussing a teacher who they had a ritual apparently of saying the Pledge of Allegiance, which I'll get to in a minute, but they had a ritual of saying the Pledge of Allegiance, or at least observing something where they stand and there's a flag, and I guess just a minute of awkward silence or something. And she decided that it was a good idea to instead have her students pledge to the pride flag. You know what? I'm not even going to take any more time. Let's pull up video one here and let's play it and see what we have.
Okay, so during third period, we have announcements and they do the Pledge of Allegiance. I always tell my class, stand if you feel like it, don't stand if you feel like it, say the words if you want, don't have to say the words. So my class decided to stand but not say the words. Totally fine. Except for the fact that my room does not have a flag. It used to be there, but I took it down during COVID because it made me uncomfortable. And I packed it away and I don't know where, and I haven't found it yet. But my kid today goes, hey, it's kind of weird that we just stand and then, we say it to nothing. And I'm like, oh, well, I gotta find it. Like, I'm working on it. I got you. In the meantime, I tell this kid, we do have a flag in the class that you can pledge your allegiance to. And he looks around and he goes, oh, that one?
God have mercy on us. So first of all, she makes me uncomfortable. Why she cracks up so much at, I didn't even see a joke in there. Like, she was just giggling the whole time, which sometimes you see people do when they're doing something they know is kind of naughty and they giggle throughout it. So maybe that's what we're seeing here. But a couple things just want to make note of here. First of all, I wonder what would happen if one of these ladies, fellow teachers in their classroom, decided to put the Christian flag on the wall. There's a Christian flag. It's mostly white with a blue box in the corner and a red cross in it. Which there's a Pledge of Allegiance to the Christian flag too. There's a Pledge of Allegiance to the Bible. I wonder what she would think if one of her teachers that she works with put a Christian flag up and had her students pledge allegiance to that instead. I wonder if she'd be all giggles about that, or if we have a double standard of sorts. But anyway, I do actually sympathize with the idea of feeling a little awkward with a Pledge of Allegiance. I don't think it's awful or terrible. It's just a little nationalistic in that pledging to a flag seems kind of like a China thing to do, because if you have to force people to pledge allegiance, we have an issue. I'm not anti-Pledge of Allegiance. It's just I understand feeling a little hesitant about it for some reasons. However, with her political persuasion that apparently she has, I doubt that's where she's coming from. Because she has the pride flag, and she has the new and improved pride flag that has the extra bars and all that coming in. And on this pride flag, there's the black and brown and all that for black people, how they got sucked into pride, which is LGBTQ stuff. I'm not sure how that works. Why? What do black people and homosexuality and transgenderism have to do with each other? In fact, what does homosexuality and transgenderism have to do with each other? But how did black people weasel their way into this one? I'm not sure, and I frankly don't think they want to be on there. But given her political persuasion, that seems to be quite apparent. I doubt that she is uncomfortable with the Pledge of Allegiance because she finds it to be a little nationalistic, and we shouldn't have to persuade people into loving the motherland or something like that. I don't think that's her angle on this one, shall we say. I think it probably has something to do with, Colin Kaepernick. People saying that America is brutally racist and sexist and all that, which, by the way, if America is this horrible racist, sexist place, going back to what we were talking about this week, why bring in a bunch of Afghanistan people? Why take them from one terror regime to another one, as America is reported to be? But that's off topic. She wants her students to pledge allegiance to the pride flag. I want you to just, I've asked this question before and I still haven't gotten a good answer for it, so I'm going to keep asking it. Why should we celebrate your sexual choices? Because that's what the pride flag, that's what Pride Month, all of that, we're supposed to express pride in people's sexual choices. Why? Why should we do that? Now, I get that they've also added other stuff to it. We'll get there in a minute, but why should I express any form of pride in the fact that that guy wants to do unspeakable things to that other guy? What is supposed to well up inside me where I say, I am so proud of that? I want to dedicate a month to being so proud of that guy wanting to do those things to that other guy. Why? What's the point? The whole Pride Month thing, I still haven't gotten an explanation. Have we ever had a heterosexual month where we celebrate that that guy wants to do things to that girl and that they're physically attracted to each other? I mean, if I don't think we should have either. Fair, full disclosure here. I don't think we should have either. But if we're gonna have one of them keeps at least the species going. So at least in a heterosexual relationship, you have the human race continuing. So if there's one that we're going to have pride for, wouldn't it be the one that actually does something for society? Because homosexuality, gay or lesbian, whatever it may be, cannot produce a child. Period. You got to have two different puzzle pieces to make this puzzle work. But I don't think we should have either. But if we're going to have one, I think one of them makes far more sense. Secondly, why should we celebrate what somebody feels about themselves? About what somebody thinks in their mind concerning their gender? Why celebrate that? Well, it's bold and brave. No, it's not. You know what's bold and brave? The men who were in Afghanistan, who are trying their best to keep a bunch of people safe and get them on airplanes, and get them evacuated, who then got blown up by suicide bombers. Those men are pretty brave because they knew there was a threat that could potentially blow them up, and sure enough, it did. When you look at that scenario and put it next to somebody saying, I know I'm a guy, I know I have all the appendages that would indicate I'm a guy, but I think I want to be Sally today. When you put those two next to each other, you know what happens is you start getting perspective. Suddenly, it's not bold and brave to decide that you want to be a girl if you're a boy. A little perspective helps this one. There's nothing to celebrate. Even though there was another, I believe, TikTok video of a teacher who is a guy who said, now, class, look up at me here. I have something I want to say to all of you. I know that you've known me as Mr. So-and-so, but I want you to know I'm non-binary. And I will accept all pronouns. And you can call me some weird name. And the class just starts applauding, saying we're proud of you and all that. Why? Give me one good reason why. Well, they're living their truth. No, they're denying who they are. There is a very clear truth about who they are, and they're denying it. You're not helping them be who they are. You're helping them reject it. Because accepting who you are sometimes comes with a little bit of struggle. If you have a tension between how you feel and the body that you're in, sometimes there's some work that needs to be done, some effort, some hard toil. If you're gender dysphoric, I'm sure there's some suffering involved. But helping people often is helping them get through the suffering to be who they are. But no, in this case, we have to just celebrate people in their delusion. So this whole pride flag thing makes absolutely no sense. But there's a little bit more insight that this lady terrorizes us with in clip number 2. Let's go ahead and roll that.
It's Pride Month! I'll never not be awkward. That's fun for me. Happy Pride, everyone! It's June 1st, the start of Pride Month. Here's what I got going in my classroom. I got these flags from Target in like the dollar bin, so that's amazing. They didn't have all of them in the collection that they came out with, so I got all the ones that they had. As well as the inclusive pride flag. I pledge allegiance to the queers. I also got a really big pride inclusive flag. I need to put it up still, but it's gonna go up there and I need like a ladder. So that's gonna come later, but it's here, yay! So I love you all very much. For the people who are out, for the people who aren't out, you're appreciated, you're loved, you are enough. I support you, I got you. Send your queer friends.
I feel really bad for the people who have to be in that class, which brings me back to get your kids out of that class. If, again, there is no justifiable reason anymore, do everything in your power. Maybe there are limited circumstances where you can have your kids in public school, but do everything in your power to not have them in that scenario. But she pledges allegiance to the queers. Why? Like, seriously, what has you thinking that this particular group, who happens to have a different preference when it comes to sexual interaction, is preferable and should have your allegiance? Because I can give you a lot of reasons why you should perhaps discourage that, talking about things like AIDS to things like men's issues they have when they engage in sexual activity together, and I'm being very sanitized with my language right now. But I could give you a lot of argument for why we should oppose this and strongly discourage it. What's your counter argument, rather than just I'm proud? Also, did you see those flags that she had? Because this is more of a PSA. This is just to help you out because you might be one of these people. I can't tell you how many friends I've had on Facebook that, you know, those little banners that you can put your message in. I've had so many friends who I know do not support the transgender thing using the banner that has the blue, pink, and white stripe on it. This is just a public service announcement for you. That is the transgender flag. So if you don't want to try to promote the transgender movement, maybe go with a different flag. I know one person I talked to, I said, so I'm guessing you weren't aware, but that's the transgender flag. And he said, oh, I thought it was supposed to be like patriotic, because on my phone it looks a little bit red and blue and white. And I thought, well, America. Yeah, no, that's the transgender flag. So I just wanted to give that public service announcement. But last thing before I bring Josh in here, just go into the whole pride thing, because you have homosexuality, which is a man is attracted sexually to another man. Transgenderism kind of grenades the whole issue. Why? Because the idea of homosexuality is that there is a man and there is a woman. And this man wants to do unspeakable things with another man. Transgenderism says there's no such thing. Men and women are just social constructs. And so a man could be a woman whenever. And to go a little further, the big argument for homosexuality has also been, well, you're born that way. It's an immutable characteristic. You can't not be gay if you were born gay. Yet they will say that a man who is gay could become a woman and still be attracted to men, therefore becoming straight. It's really confused when you put the L and the G and the B together with the T. It makes no sense. And if your worldview can't even hold itself together to present itself, not to mention survive examination and survive rebuttal and refutation, if your worldview can't even get its act together to even present itself, perhaps you should consider a different worldview. One like maybe the Christian worldview, which happens to be what this show is all about, which Josh talks about all the time at the beginning of our show. And that's my not so subtle way of bringing Josh back in. Josh, what were your thoughts of those TikTok videos? And were you as tortured as I was through that experience?
I was, and I was actually very happy to see you have to be put through it, because I usually have to do the TikTok videos. As a matter of fact, tomorrow I'm going to be doing one. And, it was just nice for me to actually see you have to put up with the insane thinking that's on TikTok. This one wasn't a lot of thinking, but a lot of times, one of the ones we're going to do tomorrow, it's like this, it's rationing through an issue and just like utterly failing, like terribly failing, but thinking that since it's only a 1 minute video, that they're going to just, fool everybody. Everybody's just going to think that they're making sense. But this girl doesn't even try to do that. She just laughs, Maybe if I just laugh and I'm like really cute, that I will get people to think that I'm making sense. But you're right. It doesn't make sense. Although I don't think that they care. I don't think that they really care about making sense. They just really care about feeling good about what their decisions are. I want to be a girl. I want to be a boy. I want to be whatever. And these are things I want. And what I want you to affirm. I don't really care if it makes sense. I don't really care if it's logical. I don't really care if it's wrong. This is, I think, is their mentality. I just care that I want it, and what I want is right. And this really goes back to the Bible, because what does Genesis say? What does it say throughout Scripture when the society was at its worst? It's when men did whatever was right in their own eyes. They kind of made up their own righteousness without actually using logic and thinking in the Word of God. And I think this is where we are as a society right now.
Yeah, and speaking of the Bible, that question I asked at the beginning, what do you think this delight of a human being would do should one of her coworkers have the children pledge allegiance to the Christian flag?
Freak out. She would blow her top, which actually I'd love to see. I would actually really enjoy a follow-up video to this, where another teacher has her students do a pledge to the Christian flag and what her response would be. I would love that. I don't think it will happen, because that other teacher would be fired, unlike her, who's not fired for doing this. But I would love to see it. Pay good money for it.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, one of my big issues also with this is that teacher has no authority to have your children pledging allegiance to the pride flag. But speaking of people who don't have the authority and are just overstepping it and asserting that they have the authority anyway, I want to segue into another article that I stumbled across that if you want to hear a more expanded version of this, I'm going to be covering it on the Justin Barnes Show this week as well. The CDC put out a list of preferred terms for select population groups and communities. Josh, I know I sent this to you a little bit ago. Have you looked over some of this? Have you seen what the CDC thinks they have the right to do?
Well, I've got it in front of me, and maybe you can explain it to me, because I'm not understanding. how does this have anything to do with the CDC? Like,
Good question.
how does it controlling diseases to tell people what terms are to be used for select population groups and communities? Am I missing something here?
Well, do you remember last summer when the Black Lives Matter riots were happening and a bunch of public health experts came out and said, no, this is good because racism is a public health crisis. So this is actually the kind of thing they've been doing. They've been just inserting themselves into fields where they have no right. But here's the thing: is I think this is a natural conclusion. I want to read a few of these and just sort of get some thoughts. But I think this is a natural conclusion of what we've said about the CDC, and that is the CDC is making decisions that are more than just health decisions. They're decisions for public policy and things like that. But let's read some of these. So instead of inmate, say people or persons who are incarcerated or detained, often used for shorter jail stays or youth in detention facilities. You have for people with disabilities, instead of disabled, say people with disabilities, a disability, which would be someone who's disabled. Like, some of these make absolutely no sense. But when you get to, and again, I'm kind of like scurrying along here because we don't have a whole lot of time. But here's where the colors start to show. If you go down to non-U.S. born persons / immigration status, here's where some of the colors start to really, really show. I don't know if you have that to be able to pull it up, but let me read what it says. Instead of illegals or illegal immigrants or illegal aliens or illegal migrants or foreigners or foreign-born, say people with undocumented status. When you control the language, you can shape how people think about this. Abortion is healthcare. So we've framed this whole discussion around healthcare. These are not illegal immigrants. The technical definition, the technical description of what they're doing, they're people with undocumented status. Or they're an asylee or asylum seeker or a refugee or non-U.S. born persons. Which is totally obfuscating the entire point of why we're making this distinction to begin with. They are not U.S. citizens; they are illegal.
Are they claiming that calling someone something that they don't want to be called or that offends them is in some way a disease? Like, is that what they're kind of getting at? Like, it's like harmful to that person, so we're protecting the mental health of that person by helping you say the right thing? Like, is that what they're...
Actually, they don't even try to make the connection to disease. Their opening paragraph says language and communication in communication products should reflect and speak to the needs of people in the audience of focus. The following provides some preferred terms for select population groups. The terms to try to use represents an ongoing shift towards non-stigmatizing language. So they don't even try to connect this to public health at all. Nothing about disease prevention. And you can go down after you have non-U.S. born citizens, you have race and ethnicity, which obviously is weird. I don't even get it, because one of them, they say with Hispanic or Latinos, they talk about the phrase Latinx. And they have this little bulletin that says Latinx has been proposed as a gender-neutral English term, but there is debate around its usage. Its use may be considered on an audience-specific basis. Here's what you need to know about Latinx. I don't know any Latino or Latina people who like the phrase Latinx. There's not a debate as much as there is a wholehearted rejection of this stupid phrase that a bunch of rich white liberals came up with. I don't know of, like, I think the polls were like in the 80s to 90s of people who are Latino or Latina who reject this phrase. This is wholly fabricated, and yet the CDC is trying to push this as, well, it's a debated issue right now. No, it's not.
Yeah, and who gives them the right? Okay, okay, let's accept the preposterous idea that that I can't offend somebody for their own mental health. And let's accept for the preposterous idea that the CDC somehow has some interest at all in telling me what I should call different people. Let's accept both of those two and still deal with this big giant fat issue that's hanging out there. Who gives you the right to tell people what they are to be offended about? How are you to know that these people are offended by this or aren't? Right? And why do you get to decide that these people should be offended by this or shouldn't be offended by something, by Latinx? Like, do you realize that people are individuals? Some of them may be offended, some of them may not be. And maybe we shouldn't treat whole groups of ethnic groups as if they're all the same. Isn't that like, oh, I think there's a word for that. Oh, racism. That's what it's called. It's called racism.
Well, the thing is, I think this is kind of a natural conclusion, though, of when you let the CDC put a moratorium on eviction, you're letting them do whatever they want. Because the CDC is allowed to abolish private property when they feel like it.
Yeah.
So why can't the CDC also abolish free speech? I mean, they're God now. This I think the lady who runs the CDC now, is it Rochelle Walensky, I think? If I remember correctly, I think she was a professor at the beginning of the year in some college. And now she has the right to abolish private property, to abolish free speech. I mean, the moratorium the CDC put out came with legal penalties. How do we get there? Who died and left the CDC God? That is, I will never understand why people think that any of what has happened over the last year and a half has anything to do with rationality, and especially Christians who try to defend it like it's biblical. But I don't have time to get into that stupid debate that I got into.
This just kind of makes me think that all of those post-apocalyptic zombie movies where people go to the CDC for help, it's out the window now. It's just ridiculous. The last place you would go in a zombie apocalypse is the CDC. All they're going to do is say, don't call them zombies, call them undead persons, or whatever. I mean, this is just ridiculous. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. Guys, we want you to be right about issues. To be right about issues, you got to be biblical. If you're going to be biblical, start by believing the gospel that Jesus died on the cross for our sins. We're not good enough. We aren't good people. That's not why we go to heaven. We go to heaven, if we go to heaven, because we've accepted the gift of Jesus Christ paying for our sins on our behalf. That's why he died on the cross. Trust in Jesus Christ. Trust the gospel. And then to be right about issues, we're going to have to be biblical about them. That's what Point of View is all about. We want to help you learn how the Bible applies to these issues so that you can be right about them by being biblical. And with that said, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.